Welcome to my podcast. Today's dream, tomorrow's reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. Well, now some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one little tiny thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I'll be introducing in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that is leave a comment. Like, subscribe, share. I really want to be able to support my guest at a greater level. And the way I do that is by having you help me promote this. So please like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. So now let's get started. Now, I've already jacked myself up with this last name thing because I've tried it a couple of times and I've screwed it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. Kristin Gutierrez. Ah,
Yes, you
well,
got it.
uh, she is amazing. I can't wait to get to know her a little bit better. But we are, like a lot of guests that I've had, in a circle of people that we know that are similar or we're in different worlds and together. I don't know. That sounds kind of silly. But anyway, we know some of the same people. That's a better way to say it. I am part of Stacy Lauren's tribe. She's one of the people that I say the day I met her has changed my life. She is the reason that I have this podcast right here, and so many other things in my world are truly um, come from having met her and know her. And so Kristen is in that little world as well. And so I'm so excited to have you here. And if you want to, I would love to have you share with everybody just a little bit about you. Don't get crazy because I want to have time to discover some of this with you. So go ahead, tell them who you are.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Vicky. Excellent pronunciation
Oh,
and shout out to Stacey Lauren and her collaboration network. I am a high ticket coach, but it wasn't always that way. I was used to be a corporate vice president, climbing the ladder for sales, and we'll talk about it later. I wrote a book. And basically, I help entrepreneurs lean in to monetize their expertise and charge what they're worth.
ooh, that sounds fascinating. I am ready to dive in for that. So, I know just a little bit from the questionnaire that you filled out for me. And thank you for doing that because it really helps me a lot. The thing that I thought was so cool was as you talked about the corporate job you had and the things that kind of happened with losing that job and all the things that you faced as a woman with children and all the different things that you had going on. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about that part of your story, but maybe let's back up a little bit. So what did you do before you started your corporate job?
Oh, college.
Okay. So where did you go to college?
Well, I'm from South Bend, Indiana, and I went
Okay.
to a women's college, St. Mary's, which is part
Okay.
of like next to Notre Dame. And like my parents were salespeople. My
Okay.
dad were in packaging. My mom sold pharmaceuticals. And then my
So it's in your
sister,
blood.
yeah, and my sister is a attorney,
Okay.
a salesperson. One of my other sisters sells hearing aids. So yes, in
Okay.
my blood. But when I first got out of college, to be fair, I sold yellow page advertising.
Oh, that ages you, right? A lot of us young, a lot of those young people are thinking, what are yellow pages?
Yeah, so I did that. And then I wanted to move to Chicago where everybody went after St. Mary's Notre Dame. And I was offered the coolest job at H&M. They were
Mhm.
expanding to APAC and they were
Hmm.
looking for leaders to come in as managers and go there to open stores. And I said no to that job and ended
Why?
up working because you just don't know what you don't know. I
Right,
took a
right.
job working at Saks Fifth Avenue on Chicago, Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And I was the number one credit card opener store wide for months in a row.
I bet I
Yet
shopped at your store then because there was some one woman that really, really got me when even though I didn't want a card. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep
you
going.
had like one item and she's like, "You want to save 15%?"
Yes, that's it.
But I had a micromanaging boss. Like
Hmm.
he'd be like, pick up that shirt. It was like, and anyway, that story ended up in my book. But after that, I don't know about you, but I plastered my resume everywhere on Monster and career builder sites that probably don't exist. And I ended up in corporate sales, basically sitting behind a desk making phone calls.
Okay. What did you sell?
Oh my goodness, language translation services.
Okay.
So, like, I did it for 20 years. It's a
Hmm.
multi-billion dollar industry, but the industry is so saturated with thousands, no joke, of vendors. And I happened to work for the first 10 years of my career at the top three vendors in the industry. But like Apple, Dell, any products we use that are internationally, being produced or utilized, they have to translate the content, the user interface, everything about everything. And in the 20 years I was in that industry, it got more competitive. There was more content, but it was really fun. I mean, we sold multi-million dollar language programs.
Nice. Nice.
Mhm.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. So then you that job, did they just fire you? Did they cancel that what you were doing? What the heck happened? Did they just lay you off? I don't know.
Yes. So it's funny because should I say how old I am?
Honey, you can say anything you want to.
Okay, so I'm 43
Okay.
and I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay.
So someone say late in life. I just chose to have children very late in life. And before I was pregnant with my second kid, I was still chasing shiny objects. Like it was never enough. I was never fulfilled in my day job, as I called it. I was always trying to do something else, be a
Hmm.
body coach, be a realtor. And then I had the second kid and I was like, whoa, I'm that much older. I'm that much more tired. And like, it's hard to manage not just one kid, two kids, a marriage, and all of the things. And so I put my blinders on. And in that year, I got promoted twice. So that's like the apex of my career because I went from like kind of having my just doing really well to like actually wanting to climb the corporate ladder. And I went from manager to director to VP.
Okay.
April 17th, 2023, 30 of us were let go completely unexpectedly. And that's when I turned what happened to me, i.e., they pulled my 6-figure corporate job. We were in the middle of just financial distress, which we can talk about, and a divorce, and I just turned what happened to me by leaning into imperfect action.
Yeah, beautiful. Because one of the things that I tell my clients and the people in my group and everything when I'm talking to them is that opportunities show up as obstacles more times than not. And so it is finding whatever piece of that obstacle that showed up is like, what am I supposed to learn from this? How is this moving me from where I thought I was supposed to be to where I need to be? And looking at it and under a different lens. And so it sounds like you did just that. And so I love that. But that's one of the things you can teach all the time, but it's great to have an example of what that really means. And so share a little bit, if you don't mind. I know you said that you were using credit cards to do a lot of these things, so you were getting deeper in debt. And so share a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yes. So I don't know if anyone listening has ever invested in a rental property outside of their immediate zip code. I'm living in Long Beach, California, and we chose to buy my grandparents' home in South Bend, Indiana, so 2,000 miles away. And while the home was original at best, decided without anyone suggesting we should do a total full gut model rehab. In fact, we took a 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath home and turned it into 5 bedrooms, 4 full baths.
Oh, that's not a remodel, that's a redo.
And somebody saying not smart, but I decided with the support of my then husband, it was like totally above board that we would do this without cash in the bank. And the exit strategy, as you will, was to do a cash out refi with my W-2 because we knew as it did. I mean, I recently sold the home. We knew it would appraise and that we knew the numbers would work.
Right.
But unfortunately, on April 17th of 2023, we were walls wide open. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you. It 100% had not happened to me. It's like the credit card companies knew and they started closing down, like not just the one Amex, all of my Amexes were shut down. Like everything was like on massive hold. And so that's like scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did what anybody would do, and I pulled 2 hard money loans because I knew that they would be asking for documentation, which of course I could provide. And so that is ultimately how I covered my sins. But the financial stress of having several thousands of dollars, like multi 5 figure thousands of dollars owed every month for these
Holy
hard
shit.
money loans.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I've actually come to peace with needing to sell the house and all of the things. And there's so many beautiful things that have happened. But I mean, it it served its purpose, but it was my grandparents' home. We were Airbnb-ing it for Notre Dame and St. Mary's events and football games and all the things. And I had the business then for 1 full year, and it was so fun. And then
Okay.
they took it to the national championship. And although they didn't win, it's like, I mean, that's a university where there's just constantly money flowing in. And but it served its purpose by me being able to sell it.
Yeah. So you made the decision to sell it because you needed to cash out for other things, or you just decided that it wasn't what you wanted anymore?
No, the hard money loans and the divorce finalizing and
Mm.
California, I
So you had
mean,
to liquidate.
super small house, but a California sized mortgage. Like there's just like the left side wasn't equaling the right. And I was hustling. Like I always tell people, I can outwork anybody behind a computer. Like I'm the girl who says yes and figures it out. That's the title of my second book coming out. Like I can outwork you, but is it the right thing to do to be an entrepreneur who's constantly hustling, 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 burning the candles at both ends? You've got young kids, you're so tired. So I was making every month what I needed to make to survive, but it was exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. And that's no way to live. No way to live at all. And that's it's interesting because I've shared this story before. I had an uncle who passed away and he was a millionaire, multimillionaire, I have no idea. But he was my mentor because he had this huge business and he had such a a way about him that I wanted to learn from him, right? But one of the things that I think I had as a limiting belief about prosperity was because he was married to this business. And so whether if he took a vacation, it had to do with the business. If he did anything, it had to do with the business. And so he spent a lot of time there. And so the limiting belief I had was that if you're going to have a lot of money and have a good business, that you can't have a life. And so it took me a long time to realize that, and it was even after he passed away that I realized that it wasn't to him, it wasn't that he was married to the life. That was the joy he had. And his inspiration was, well, if we're going to go on vacation, let's just go ahead and do this too. And, and he was amazing, but that. it took me a really long time to get out of that feeling that if you, it was also, if you don't work hard enough for it, you don't deserve it, was another one. And it's amazing the things that we can hold ourselves to as ideas that don't serve us at all, right? So how did you get to this place where you were figuring this out and how you wanted to you write your book and not have a job that is, a job? I became an entrepreneur because I was a hairstylist and I worked a lot of hours, and it was very, people don't realize that it's a very physical thing because you're all the time doing something and standing and working, and the mental thing. And so when I first became an entrepreneur and people were telling me the things that I had to do to make it, I thought, why would I do that when I'm looking for more freedom and not more things to hold me to a certain way of life, right? So just share a little bit if you don't mind.
No, and I would love to hear like also how you overcame those limiting beliefs, because I know for me it's like I had coaching, I had mental health help, I had a hypnotherapist, I had emotional sobriety coach. I had like I had to invest in myself in order to quantum leap myself in the last 18 months.
Yeah. Well, I did the same kind of thing. Instead of hiring a coach, I became one. And one of the things that you do as a coach when you're learning is you're working with other students and you're learning and practicing and everything. And so I became a life coach, a master transformational coach, and then I became a hypnotist. And so all of those things, and it's not like it's perfect now, those thoughts can sometimes still pop in there. Like, I'll just share really quick, and I probably shouldn't share on this, but one of the things that I've discovered about myself is that belief that the one that makes the money is in charge. So, if I have a relationship with someone, they don't make money. My daughter constantly loses her job and then relies on me. And even though I say I want her to have a job, I think underneath I'm in charge if she can't pay her part. You know what I
What
mean?
an acknowledgement of a limiting. You're really good at that, Vicky, like pulling out these limiting beliefs or the thing behind the thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
That one's just come to me in the past few days.
well, now
And
that it's
hopefully she
here.
won't hear this one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, oh, this is way more interesting. Where do we go from here? Do you want me to share where?
Yeah. You,
Yeah,
you share. This is the Kristen show, but I just keep sharing my stuff, so I apologize.
I love it. I love it. This is what makes the conversation authentic and unique.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, so like in 2023, I asked my CEO, make me the chief revenue officer. There was a job open, and he was like, "No, you're not ready." And I woke up one day and thought I should write a book because the book will give me credibility to climbing the corporate ladder and continue to prove to whomever is watching my LinkedIn that, right? So I wrote Be a Better Sales Leader. I started it March 1st, 2023, which is my birthday.
Oh,
I got let go in April, and then I released it in May. And
wow.
sometimes I say, like, who has the guts to release a book on Be a Better Sales Leader when they get quote unquote fired as being a sales leader? But the
That
one
would be
thing,
you.
welcome. The one thing I always wanted to do was start my own business, and I didn't know what it would look like. I was scared to attempt to monetize, although there was other ways to do it that wouldn't have jeopardized my job. I could get speaking gigs, I could write a book. Um, and I don't know if I would have ever done it, despite the story of the house and doing that without money in the bank, leaving your job willingly without money in the bank to start your own thing. You don't know. And so when I lost my job at 10 a.m., as humans, we seek comfort. And I very much could have sought comfort on my couch and taken a nap or binge watch my favorite show, or like I like to say, eat a box of cookies, right? But instead, I innately chose to seek comfort in action. And I never stopped moving. And by 2 p.m. that day, I had secured my first contract and I started monetizing my sales expertise back to the industry, and teaching smaller vendors how to sell, like some of the
Okay.
strategy. And I just started winning and winning and winning. But what was exhausting about all of it is I was selling myself. And so, although I wasn't selling like, oh, I'll come in and do cold calls for you, I was constantly in meetings doing the implementation, like talking about strategy, learning about their challenges. And then I knew that the contracts were 3 months, 6 months. And so I was constantly on the other side of my
Yeah.
account trying to prospect for more business. And that is what ultimately led to burnout. One of my consulting clients offered me a job, and this is like Q4 of 23. And I realized, oh my gosh, like the financial distress is still happening. The house is being listed, but not being sold. Like maybe I should put my ego aside and take this job. And I did. And luckily, within a few months, we mutually parted ways. And so by April of 2024, I left that job once again. And then that's when I drew the line in the sand. So first, I like to say I turned what happened to me into what happened for me and leaned into that imperfect action. But second, that line in the sand, I was like, no one else's opinions pay my bills. And
Right.
I just like went for it. And I invested in a high ticket offer that week, which is crazy pants because I was still in financial distress with the house not having been sold. But I was like, who has the key? Who has the tools? Like, who can actually help me 10x?
Yeah. Yeah. And it did, right?
Yes. I mean, I cash collected like 6 figures in 2023, serving as my own entrepreneur. And then I 3x that in 2024. Um,
Wow.
just like, I mean, I feel like my life has totally changed. And then 2025 and beyond, I actually think this will be, if I can so proudly say, my first not only $1 million year, but my first multi-million-dollar year. Like I'm
Beautiful.
going for it.
Yeah, yeah. So I got a question for you. So you purchased this high ticket offer. Was that Eileen?
It was Miss Eileen
Okay.
Wilder.
Okay. Just checking. Um, so you're not giving any secrets away, but what would you say? Because you were pretty successful as a business person already. You wrote the book, you were making some money and everything. So, what would you say is the number one thing that you learned from being part of this high ticket thing with Eileen that was the thing that just kind of catapulted you into the next stratosphere?
My gosh, that's a great question. I people pay for proximity. And believe it or not, like people say, I mean, I just saw this today about Catholicism at Notre Dame. It was literally said it's caught, not taught. And that's also what Eileen and other people say, like more is caught than taught. And
Hmm.
so when I invested in that offer, I knew she would had the system to sell high ticket offers, but I also knew it was like who was going to be in the room with me.
Yeah.
She told a story of somebody who made $100,000 in one day when I was in her challenge. And I was like, okay, two things are true right now. One, that's a lot of money. Like it's not covering my financial sins, it's not replacing my corporate income, but that's a lot of money. And two, I can do it too. So
Yeah.
that
Well,
unwavering,
I want to stop you a second because what happens to a lot of people, is when that kind of conversation comes up, they say, "Ah, but I can't do that. That person is the outlier." And so then they kind of skirt away from the whole thing. So what is it about you and your beliefs about you that helped you look at that and say, "Ah, I can do that."
isn't that
You
fascinating?
understand the difference I'm saying here?
Yes, all day long. Because people say to me
Yeah.
too, like, oh, but I wasn't a salesperson, so I can't sell. And then I've learned to reframe, actually even purpose my book to serve entrepreneurs because it's same, right? And most entrepreneurs aren't salespeople, corporate 20-year corporate sales veterans, but 100% the limiting beliefs we have around that. I don't. I would be interested in what your perspective is because for me, the line in the sand was so deep. Like this was like fight or flight, and I was so sick of that, right?
Yeah.
That I just said I can do this
So your
too.
why was big enough
The
that
why that
whether it was true for everybody else or not, meant it still had to be true for you.
yeah. And then and so I don't like that because the decision, I walked across the street to my son's daycare, preschool across the street. And I remember thinking we're middle, no, our divorce had just been finalized. We're still living together. The house in Indiana is not sold. So financial crisis, right? And I'm like, but I can't not invest in this offer because by then I had been showing up to her 5-day challenge with my camera on, raising my hand, doing takeaways, asking questions, and getting real-time feedback and typing on my computer like a crazy person, just absorbing everything I could. And so it's so funny to me because yeah, the why that makes you cry, the line in my sand, the sand, and I was just like, so I just put it on a credit card. I mean, it is wild to
Hmm.
me, right?
Yeah.
Um, within the, so within, that was end of April, within 6 weeks, then I had done $125,000 in sales.
Wow, nice, nice. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I never, because A, it was the belief, and then
Hmm.
B, it's imperfect action. And one of my super strengths, one of my like superhero strengths is how do you snowball massive imperfect action. So to trick your brain into releasing dopamine, not just when you accomplish the goal, but actually when you get started. So I have like a 4-step framework that I developed, but that's it. I never stopped moving. And I knew that if I did it enough and I put in enough reps, I wouldn't be death by implementation anymore. And I wouldn't be like dying through prospecting. And sure enough, now I work
Yeah.
like 4 hours a day.
Yeah, and there's I can't remember if it's Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar. I think it might be Zig Ziglar, but he talks about the priming the pump. So you've heard that story, right? So just for those that maybe have not heard it, he says that, it's like chopping the wood before winter comes. You don't wait till winter comes, you chop the wood and you do the work to make sure that it's a flow, right? And so when you're priming the pump, you have to like for those that don't know, a pump you would be for water and you would just really jack it with your hand. You'd pump it up and down to get the water to flow out. And then the thing is if you stop because it feels like it's hard or it feels like, gosh, it's not working, then all of a sudden the water goes all the way down to the bottom and you have to work twice as hard to get it back up. And so that's one of the things that I'm reminding myself a lot of times of is because it's like sometimes as an entrepreneur, you can feel that the momentum's building, it's building, it's building, it's building, and it's coming. But sometimes it feels like it's just right over the next ridge, it's not right here in front of you, even though it actually is. Um, but a lot of times it is so easy if you don't know what your why is, or if the why is not big enough to say, well, this is too hard. I'm just going to go find another job, 9 to 5. And I will say I had someone, which was actually a coach, for me a while back that told me, because at that time I wasn't making enough money with my entrepreneurial journey, right? And she said, well, I think you just need to go get another job. I said, what? I said, that sounds counterintuitive. I'm still doing the salon stuff and then I've got this. So where am I supposed to put this job in? And if I can get one client online, I would have to work how long to make that same amount at that job? I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. And it was very eye-opening realizing that not everybody's giving you the perfect advice, you know? Um, and you have to have your own discernment about that, right? So for me, it was like, no, I'm just going to work a little bit harder on this. The thing is that what I want to know about your journey is you had said you worked 24/7 basically, trying to get everything going, right? So you've been in Eileen's thing and you really, really over excelled, it sounds like. And so that amazing, amazing. But are you in a place in your life right now where you feel like you take the time for yourself, you take the time for your family, and do you do all those things that you kind of wanted to do, but you were just working so hard you didn't take the time?
Isn't that so good, Vicky? Like calling that out because we say we're going to do one thing and then what do we do? The total opposite. So, in fact, I'll never forget 2023, that counterintuitive feeling of, quote, getting another job. Like, I just thought I needed to do that for my family, or like, what was it? I just wanted to make sure, I mean, it was all in my head, but nonetheless, I felt like I gave it all away. And then it was the holidays. And I remember I quote unquote had no PTO and now I'm stuck working. And then there's a conference, an entrepreneur conference I wanted to go to, and I couldn't go to it. And so 2023 was a very opening year for me to be like, when I'm my own entrepreneur again now, I will do it right. And as
Hmm.
scary financially as 2024 has been or was, 100% like took 2 full weeks off for Christmas with my children for their break,
Nice. Yeah.
out
Yeah.
working. August is when so April is when I became an entrepreneur again, 2.0 version. June is when I started making money. And then August is when I scaled back my work week to 20 hours because I realized even though my calendar was generically blocked, I would constantly make exceptions. Oh, yeah, I'm so
I'll
used
squeeze you in.
Oh yeah. Like no big deal. 8 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever, right? I still do it, but I entered in what I call my rest and restore season.
Hmm.
And one thing we teach is how to use your imagination to even make more money. And
Right.
one thing I challenge my clients with is going on a walk every day, or what used to be for me, tinkering in my garden, actually getting away from your desk and going. And
Yeah.
then now when I have my children every other week, I pick like I am 11 to 2. I'm 11 to 2 every day. I don't even know if that's 4 hours. 11 to 2 and then I go get them and I do all the things. I mean, I have mom guilt for not volunteering at school yet, but a lot of the other things I am doing because I think what happened, quote, to me in 2023 with being an entrepreneur and then burning the candle at both ends, I was like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
how, I don't want to wait. How
Yeah.
do I put this in? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I had a woman that she and I did a program together as that we created a program together that we put out, right? And I did the mindset stuff and everything, but she was a oh God, why it just went right out of my head. She's not an actor. Improv. She's an improv. She teaches improv and does all this stuff, right? And so it was like we wanted to put some fun into all this activity that we were doing the mindset work. It was amazing. But the thing that was so cool and that I learned from her, more than one thing, but the one thing was she had a boundary on her time like you would not believe. So if I message her, because since I still have a day job, and I'm doing all of this, I'm doing this stuff late in the evening a lot of times, and her cutoff was like 5 p.m. It's like if you reach out to me after 5 p.m., I will answer the next day. And it was like, what? That just feels foreign. I don't get that. And she had boundary like her weekends. Nope. Weekends as family. And I remember when I first heard this because I thought a lot of people say that, but they don't do it, right? And so the first time I sent her a message and said, well, we really need to talk about this. Can we do this on Saturday? She said, I appreciate what you're saying and I understand, but no. And it was like, no excuses, no, no, but I got to do this. I just loved it. And I even told her, I said, I am in awe and I want to be you when I grow up. Now, she was a hell of a lot younger than me. But the thing is that until I saw her demonstrating that, it sounded like a pie in the sky kind of thing. but I really want that for me. So the way I'm doing my business now is I do have things marked out on my calendar when people schedule, but then every now and then somebody reaches out and says, there's nothing on your calendar and it works for me. Can we do something else? And I still will say, well, let me see what I can do, and I'll try to put them in, right? So still have not gotten that place where I say, no, you know?
Think of all, I mean, give yourself grace. I know you do, but it's interesting because I'm listening like 100%. What you're reminding me of one of my favorite managers, mentors in corporate, Allison McDougall. But for one of the things you say is you never owe anyone an explanation. And so I don't know if
Right.
it's a female thing or just like a learning thing, but clearly this colleague of yours, she knew that boundary and gave no
Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah.
Then the rest of us, we make all of these excuses. The thing I'm realizing right now, because now I also say I'm in my receiving era where I don't, corporate sales, man, like you chase. I can
Yeah.
chase eyes, I can chase kids, I can chase clients, prospects. Like you naturally, this is the thing you're doing. But I wanted to start attracting and start receiving, and it's working so beautifully. So as I look at my boundaries around time, I
Hmm.
also am like, there's a season. Just because I might say, well, this season, I'm actually trying to sever 100% ties from my ex-husband, making sure I can now afford to purchase my own California home because this is where we live now. So, like, what does this season require? And so I create, well, not create, but like I'm saying a new saying right now, which is short-term pain for long-term.
Long-term gain. Yes.
I created a 2025 goal
Hmm.
that is different than my bigger goal, but it feels very attainable, that is motivating me to shave some expenses, work an extra hour longer, and make a few modifications. So that's all, like,
Yeah.
grace.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. I do remind myself a lot of times, and I am getting better about the no excuses because I used to always feel like I had to have this reason for why I was saying no. And so once I worked with Laura, it was like, maybe I don't need a reason. I just say no. And so I am practicing that, but it's a long held habit. And so habits sometimes are hard to break. So I'll catch myself in the middle of trying to give it a reason and it's like, bring it back in.
For everything, for interactions with our
Yeah.
family, our siblings, our significant others, like
Our
colleagues,
kids. Yeah. The kids are the big one. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
especially if they're still in the but why mom phase.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, mine are older than that, but you still get the but why mom thing.
They
It
never
never
go.
ends.
Yeah. Well, this is
So,
fun.
as you were just talking about all these different things, sorry, I've got a hair on my face. These things that you're doing, and you've got a new book coming out. Um, and I can't remember exactly what you just said a few moments ago that had me thinking I wanted to ask this question, but I wanted to wait till you finished, and I should have interrupted you. Um, but what is one thing that you could tell everyone that maybe they're in a place where they don't have a credit card that they can throw this high ticket thing on. And so and I do love that you said you went to the free workshops and you did all that, but you played full out in those. And you probably learned some things that probably helped the finances a little bit too along the way. So I don't know if it's that, but maybe someone who doesn't have that safety net kind of thing, like a credit card to use, and they want to be able to make these changes.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you could kind of help them? Maybe, let me just think. So, let's say they're looking for how to make their first million or their first $100,000. I don't know, and it's been an elusive thing. What is one thing that you might could, and I know that's such a big question and, but is there something that you can kind of give them a little bit of advice?
It's a great question because it's so like whatever, it transcends so many topics. But the one word that comes to mind is iteration.
Hmm.
So, permission to iterate is something I subliminally received the day that I was made the investment because I had an offer. It was a sales community that had stopped converting, that I was trying to discount, adding in more stuff, and it was just like not working. And I needed to hear that you already naturally tap your chest and say, I have permission to iterate. And why that is kind of transcends all versions of this question is because, on the one hand, what other version are we too emotionally attached? Likely the answer is yes, to our offer. And
Hmm.
are we actually asking and listening what the audience or what the client or prospect actually needs and then giving that to them? But also, can we iterate our offer and make another offer? And because what I was originally thinking was, this is interesting, but I won a client today. I told you when we
Yeah.
logged in, and I was joking. I was like, if I had an accountant, she would kill me right now because it's not that she gave me an offer to work with her, but imagine if somebody's giving you an offer and it is a one-to-one environment, which was not when I purchased for Mylene, but just imagine, right? Be in our
Hmm.
imagination. And if they give you an offer, what is precluding you from saying, I can't do that, but I could do this? And my newest client and I, we came up with a very special offer that was curated just for her, given she is exactly like the person you're describing, which is
Okay.
exactly like where so many of us have been,
Hmm.
right? Um, I had paid off all that credit card debt with those two hard money loans, which is why I didn't really have the space, but I had the space.
Okay, I got
I
you.
don't know what I would have done otherwise, but it was not a smart decision to make that investment. But I just think that, like, how do you iterate your offer? How do you go make money? How do you sell at a higher level? And then how do you make somebody else an offer? Like, if you're making me an offer, I can enter into a negotiation with you and make you an offer right back. So iteration is the theme, the string that pulls through.
Yeah, great. I love that. And it makes me think there was a business coach that I actually hired one time. And when I got on the call with him and he told me how much the price was, it was like, I know it sounds like you're going to do amazing things for me, but that is so far out of my reach. So I'm probably going to have to do this on my own for a while and then I'll reach out. And he said, let's talk about that. And we had a conversation and he said, so you tell me, what can you do? And so I thought about it and I said, okay, this is what I can do. And he said, done. And we worked together and it was amazing. Unfortunately, he passed away while the program was still supposed to be going on. But anyway, but I got amazing information from him, even though 3 weeks in, he was gone and I couldn't finish the program with him. But what I paid for the program, he exceeded all of my expectations in just those 3 weeks. So it is one of those things that I do if I know it's outside my scope of what I can do, I do speak up. But I don't know if that's what you mean by having them make an offer, but I will speak up. Some people will say, yes, Lee, we can work together, and some people say no. Um, and I do that with clients as well. I just had a program that I did. It just ended last night, and it was called "Shake Your Sugar and Shimmy Your Soul" because I started off as a health coach, life coach, and all, and so it was amazing. And one of the people that wanted to be part of that program, she didn't say, can we do something different? I saw how much she wanted it from some of the things that she said, and I reached out to her and said, hey, I know you want it, so tell me how bad you want it. And I figured if she wanted it bad enough and agreed that she would do certain things as she was in the program, that I was willing to let her have it at a different price because I really wanted to help her make that difference. One of the things that you said just a few moments ago that I really love is that you were talking about being in the receiving mode. And so that's being on the feminine side of thing, that's receiving, and most of the time we're in the masculine and we're just trying to grab it as fast as we can, right? And it is such a difference in energy. And, I love being in the receiving mode. And so I know it's mindset and everything. So can you speak on it from, I know you've got this book and everything. So I'm sure you talk about it in the book. I'm going to have to get your book. Um, but so can you speak on what is a thing that helps someone to get into that receiving mode?
And no, yeah. So Be a Better Sales Leader is out. Everybody should grab a copy because it's so funny. People would message me like, this isn't about sales, or it's like, it's so much other goodness. And then
Right.
Say Yes to and Figure It Out isn't out yet, but this wasn't going to be in it. So I'm fascinated by the idea of it. I'm like, oh, my wheels are turning. I had coaching. I got lots of coaching, right? I mean, I was having a mental health breakdown basically, and also had my second kid in the middle of COVID, and all of these things. And
Right.
so yeah, the feminine energy. I had somebody at a wedding tell me, just like random, how we digest information from lots of different places. You're too masculine. And I'm married
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and there was nothing other than like, why can men get away with this and females can't? And the dialogue went off in a different direction. But the point is, I was like, it really impacted me, those small moments of time where somebody says something that really impacts you. And I say for the better, and it offends other people when I say that, but like, as a corporate salesperson, as the only female in first class, because I traveled so much, I was getting upgraded. That's not a badge of honor you should wear, but nonetheless, right? Like I was constantly in my masculine energy. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know feminine energy. Like
Right.
I didn't grow my nails out. I didn't wear jewelry like at any degree. And so I really was like, how do I soften my edges? How do I put myself more in a receiving? How do I not like what are the right adjectives to my now ex-husband? Like, how do I let him, even though we're not even married, like be the man and me be the female? So it's an interesting an adjustment for me that I'm
Mm-hmm.
still learning. But I know since practicing it for like 2 months, 3 months, that like part of the decision, and this is where my book does come into play,
Okay.
part of deciding, and so my 4-step framework for taking massive imperfect action, even if it's like I'm going to change my mind today and become more feminine, be receiving, write these things down. It's one, just decide. So first
Right.
our brain has to make a commitment that I'm going to decide to be more feminine. And then the second step, without having a blueprint, is simply to take one step. And I know it's funny, you're talking about receiving energy, which is not getting your nails done and starting to wear jewelry, but it all adds up. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's okay for me to have it one path to feminine is like receiving energy, and for you to have another, because after you take one little step, the third step is to lean in. And that's like maybe leaning into a community like Stacy's to share. Maybe it's asking for help. Maybe it's the fourth step, which is then to celebrate. So it's decide, take a step, lean in, and celebrate. And the point is that you celebrate every single little tiny milestone. You celebrate that, oh my gosh, you've gotten a manicure every 3 weeks for whatever, 2, 3 months. And I know that that quote sounds ridiculous as it relates to receiving energy, but it becomes part of the aura that you put out.
Yeah,
Whether
I
the
don't think it sounds ridiculous at all.
okay, that's so funny because to me, my narrative, it still is like,
No, no, no. And I will share. Sue and I have an amazing program called Mining Your Acres of Diamonds, and I don't know if you heard about it in Stacy's stuff, but the thing about it is, if you, and I'm sure you've heard the book, Acres of Diamonds, right? And so it's based kind of on that. And it's finding the diamonds under your feet, instead of looking for it everywhere else, right? Which is what we typically do. But one of the things that I think is so cool about doing this with Sue is that, used to I felt like I had to do everything by myself because I wanted to be in charge, right? Remember, I've got this charge thing, and I think that comes from I was divorced many years ago. My children's father passed away. Let's see, my daughter is 30, so 27, no, 23 years ago. And so I've been in charge of everything, right? And that's what I do. And so in this mining your acres of diamonds, it is been so amazing because I relinquish control to Sue, then she gives me some control, I relinquish some, and it's like this yin and yang because we can't always be in the feminine and we can't always be in the masculine, and so there's this ebb and flow that comes with it. And I really quick while I'm thinking about it, one of the name of your second book, one of the things that I did in my group just probably last week was I told them we were going to celebrate having a yes life. And so for the day, every one of them was supposed to be saying yes to any opportunities that came up. And they were supposed to journal about it and see how different it felt being open to whatever it was so that more things came. And so is that kind of a little bit of the premise of this book? Because that title sounded a little bit in that way. So share a little bit about that if you don't mind.
But I absolutely just want to acknowledge like your parallel situation, description, this program you have, and like the real, like the receiving energy, and just, yeah, how it can't be one or the other all of the time. But being a female in masculine energy 100% of the time just
Yeah.
creates so much cortisol and stress and
Yeah. It's hard on your
mental.
body and your mind.
But you bring up, you do have to be both, right? And I
Yeah.
love it, the partnerships we have, or that we choose, even with business colleagues, like
Hmm.
why that works. But the premise of the book, Say Yes and Figure It Out, is meant to be the perfect framework for taking massive imperfect action. So
Okay.
it really is, I like to say, Mel Robbins' 5 second rule meets Marie Forleo's Everything is Figure Outable. And
Okay.
it's interesting to name those as like book cousins, or to like root it in that, because even if you've never heard of Mel Robbins, her Let Them theory is so good. You can Google Marie Forleo, you can Google those books, and also you can hear in the titles almost like it's about getting out of your own way. It's about
Yeah.
overcoming this imposter syndrome. And it's ironic to me because these are the things I first started to monetize when I was unconsciously iterating my offer in 2023. I was like, okay, I've got sales, but like, how can I speak on big stages, and what can I keynote on, and what's all this other stuff? And this getting out of your own way and imposter syndrome is something that, whether you're consulting a sales, an organization on how to do better sales, or helping an entrepreneur monetize their expertise and charge what they're worth, this concept, right? I don't sell it as mindset, but it's the same thread,
Right.
imposter syndrome, getting out of your own way. And like, then how do you snowball the momentum? One thing I've been testing, which is why I was able to receive my newest client today with grace, and give her this offer that was just so incredible, similar to the offer that you gave your coach, right? Was because I'm like, she will get into momentum faster when she knows she has somebody in her back corner giving her the exact breadcrumbs to follow the step-by-step instructions. And for me, it secures my first win of 2025 and will create a blueprint in my head to say, oh, you're winning.
Yeah.
So like, how do you hedge your bets, and how do you stay into momentum? But that's the overall theme of the book.
Okay, cool. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's not so much like I was saying with my group that live a yes life and just say yes to the opportunities, but it's more of saying yes to life and the opportunities without being bound or held to what your expectations are.
Yeah, because I appreciate your challenge, and 100% we should all, like, everybody listening, raise your hand, wave at us from your car and say, I will say yes to the next opportunity that comes, and I will document it, and I will tell Vicky about it. Like, I love that. But the reality, as you know, is we also have to say no. And so there
Yes.
was going to be a whole chapter. Like, so it's not just simply about say yes.
Right.
Um, one of my mentors, she gave me Gabrielle Bochet. I'll give her a shout out. She owns the Purpose Company. And she gave me like the indicators of this title because she was like, you're the girl who says yes and figures it out. And I was like, whoa, what? Because they were in my life in 2023 when I was really trying to monetize my expertise. And they would tell me what to do. And I said yes. And I figured it out. Tell me what to do, say yes, and figure it out. And so that's where that concept came from.
Yeah. Okay. I understand it a lot better now because I will say, working with Stacy, one of the things that she said early on that she loved about me is that we would get on our call and she'd say, well, you need to do this, this, and this, and this. I would get off the call. I would do this, this, and this. And I would send her the message, okay, I got that done. Because to me, it was like, if I put it to the side and waited till later, I would procrastinate a lot. And it was like taking action, even if I felt like I didn't know what the hell I was doing and I don't know where this is going to go, but I'll do it. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I've made a great bit of movement in working with Stacy was because I did do when she'd tell me it, okay, I'll do it. And then one of the things that she laughs about is that I have this propensity when I get on a Zoom call with a whole bunch of people, and whether it's Stacy or anybody else, and they say, well, does anybody have anything to share? Now, if it's a group that I'm not familiar with, I'll pause for a minute to see, is anybody going to say anything? Nope. Okay, it's me. And so she always says, well, I know, Vicky, you want to go first, right? And I say yes, but I'm going to share with you why I want to go first. And that may be something that's in your book. I don't know. But you know how we compare ourselves to people, right? And so for me, what happens if I'm not careful is if I have something in me that I want to share, and then other people go before me, then it changes my share because I've listened to what they said and I thought, well, they've already said that. So let me share this over here. Or maybe, oh, maybe I don't really know what I'm talking about. And it will change the whole thing. And so I want to make sure, like, the reason I have my podcast is because I filtered my voice my whole life. And I was looking for a way to just speak, and be me, right? And so that's why I raised my hand first because I want to say what I've got to say without these filters that I would put on it after I hear other people talk. And I know that probably sounds silly, but for me, and I have to pull myself back to not do that when I'm in a group where I think, after a while, I think people think I'm just a bitch, because I'm constantly me. I want to speak first.
No, I did the same thing in a call 2 weeks ago
Uh-huh.
where they were asking us to share, and I wanted to share my wins. And this is the group who would celebrate my wins. And for some reason, I didn't share, and I couldn't figure out why at the end of the meeting I didn't share. And you're bringing to light something so interesting that I had never put my hand on, which is we filter everything through what other people say. And
Hmm.
I love it 100%. Like step into it and make it yours. And we do need to stop apologizing for being ourselves. And I
Yeah.
love that this is why your podcast exists. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah. Because, as a hairstylist and my whole family's hairstylist, I learned early on that when your client comes in and sits down, you listen to the way they talk and you mirror them, right? You
great.
have the conversation. They teach you to do that when you're dating and stuff too. So you're mirroring and you're doing all this stuff.
And in
Well, then you're
sales.
not being you. And after a while, I was so good at it. And I'm still good at it, especially a new client because I want to make sure they're comfortable and they're happy, right? So if somebody's Republican and I was Democrat, I certainly wouldn't be talking about that. So, so the thing is that it filtered into everything, not just my job. So in my relationships, it was like, oh, whatever you want to do, baby, whatever, 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 whatever. And I didn't stick up for myself. I just adopted whatever they wanted to do. And I didn't speak up for myself or anything. And if I did, it usually ended with an argument. And then I would think, well, why did I do that? Nothing was resolved, but everybody's upset. So I learned to just keep my mouth shut, right? To swallow it down. And so when I finally got to a place where it's like, I've got to be able to speak. I've got to be able to give my ideas and share without feeling like I have to suppress them. And so it's like, for whatever reason, my thought was, well, let me do a podcast because I wasn't even thinking about doing interviews at the time. I was just going to talk. And I thought, I'm just talking to myself. I don't have a clue what people think about it or anything like it, and that's okay. And so that's how it started. And it was so freeing to realize that I can just say anything. And if people don't like it, they don't have to listen again. And over time, I would see people posting things in Facebook, and I would think, oh, they've got an amazing story. I want to talk to them. And then my podcast just became me sharing people's stories because my story is in every one of them,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know?
it is 100%. It's
Yeah.
here. So I guess to wrap this up, I mean, it's not my show, but to wrap this up, I created something called the toothpaste theory,
Okay.
which you're gonna love,
Hmm.
because when I finally moved out of the home we were sharing, and now I live here, and my kids, I have them every other week. All of a sudden, we went from having one toothpaste to three toothpastes. And why is because in my marriage, I constantly gave him, and this isn't feminine versus masculine, this is just me doing exactly what you were saying. And oh, I don't care. Oh, whatever you want. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want a specific kind of toothpaste. And although he doesn't live here, I chuckle to myself one day because two kids, one adult, three toothpastes. And the reason is because while the 6-year-old and 4-year-old, one could argue, could share the same toothpaste, I just let them. Like, let them have the toothpaste of their choice if it's available. Let them have their opinion versus different than mine. And it really was like an aha moment, epiphany. Like all those years, suffered internally, not because somebody else asked me to. Oh, you're going to
Yeah.
use my
Yeah.
toothpaste or else, but
Yeah.
because I chose to suffer.
I
And
know.
so, yeah, there's
It's like
a
our badge of honor or something. I don't know, but I did the same thing. It's bizarre. It really is. But I love that. That's not my life now. I do what I want, and I will stand up for myself and voice my opinion. There are times that if it doesn't really matter, it's then it's like, okay, we'll go with what you want to do. I don't care. But if I have that little inkling inside of, ooh, I would really like to do this other thing, but I'll go along with you, then I pull back and I say, wait a minute, reevaluate this and stand up for yourself. So yeah, so I have loved this conversation so much. I would love to have another conversation with you and get to know you a little bit better. So, but I want to tell everybody that I'm going to, when this is published, you just look in the description and there'll be the links to the books and then one of the things that's beautiful about the podcast too is that when the second book actually hits the publisher, you can reach out to me and then I can add it into the description of this podcast. So when you're watching this or listening to this, it may already be there. So thank you for watching, listening, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. And because Kristin deserves to have her information out there even more than it is today. And I'm asking for everybody to help me do that.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. Thank you so much for being a gracious host, and thank you for having me.
Ah, thank you so much. So I'm going to leave everybody with the quote that I love, and it's the best way to predict the future is create it. So now let's go create.